Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the NBA DFS Core Pick video for today, Wednesday, November 29th. If you are joining me for the very first time, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they ultimately ended up turning out. We'll go over to RotoWire and take a look at the injuries in play for today's slate overall. Then we'll go to FanDuel and DraftKings and talk about my core picks for today. It's going to be one player at each position: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. And first off, before we get going, I want to say thanks to all the support for everyone that has supported me over the years. We did reach over 1,000 subs about 2 days ago. I was going to mention it yesterday, but it was a little bit tight on time. So definitely do appreciate each and every one of you that have supported me over the years. It definitely means a lot to me, as well as your continued support. So we're going to get into it today with the recap of yesterday's picks. On the DraftKings side, we had Darius Garland. He was $7,200. Looking for 36 points. Got a 37.5. He was a good hit yesterday, and he probably would have got us up over 40 if that game did not end up being a blowout last night. And then at shooting guard, we had Terry Rozier at $7,400. Looking for 37 points. Only got 21.5. He was a mess. You kind of expected that big tick up with no LaMelo Ball out there. Only 5 for 16 shooting from the field. Game ultimately ended up being a blowout as well. And then we had his teammate at small forward in Brandon Miller at $5,800. Looking for 29 points. Got 27.25. So he was a mess, but not a bad one at that. Only a couple points off of what we were looking for out of him. 7 for 18 from the field for him yesterday. Mainly was scoring dependent, so it didn't do too much other than score the ball yesterday. And then we moved down to power forward with Jaime Jaquez at $5,400. Looking for 27 on him. Got to 31.5, so he was a good hit on yesterday's slate. And then last but not least, we had Jared Allen at $6,400. Looking for 32 points on him. Got to 24. So when you look at his numbers, he wasn't bad. He ultimately ended up being a mess. Played 30 minutes. He was decent in those minutes, but it was Evan Mobley that did have the big game. And if you remember yesterday, I was saying one of him and Mobley would hit. It just kind of depended on who ultimately had more Capella on them in the game overall. Ultimately, I believe that ended up being Jared Allen, and we saw Mobley had the big game, so hopefully you got to some Mobley exposure as well. So it was a little bit of hit on the DraftKings side overall yesterday. It was a pretty interesting slate overall. Not a ton of value outside of some of the Heat players overall. And then on the FanDuel side, we had Jalen Brunson, $8,200. Looking for 41 out of him. Only got to 33.1, so he did ultimately end up being a mess. That game was a pretty big blowout as well, but only, I believe, scored 13 real life points there, so kind of let us down in that regard, although he was decent otherwise. And then we had Klay Thompson at shooting guard, $5,500, looking for 27.28 points. Got to 39.8, so he was a really strong hit on yesterday's slate. At small forward, we switched over to Jaime Jaquez with all the Heat news that did ultimately end up coming out yesterday. $6,000, looking for 30 points. Got a 32.8, so he was a hit as well. And then we had Julius Randle, $8,200, monster day for him, 25 points, 20 rebounds, and he got to 58.5 FanDuel points yesterday, so a really good hit out of him. And then at center, we had Alfred Sengun at $8,400, looking for 42 points. Got 50.8, so he was another good hit as well. So FanDuel side was really good. Outside of Jalen Brunson, all the rest were hits, and as long as you had some other decent plays there, probably a pretty easy day to cash on the FanDuel side overall. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to RotoWire and talk about those injuries in play for tonight's slate. So for the main slate tonight, we have 7 games in total. There are 3 teams that are on back-to-backs. It's going to be the Raptors, the Rockets, and the Kings. So we don't have all their injury reports at this point in time. They should be coming out later on throughout the afternoon. Typically, that gets released around 1:30 Eastern time, so definitely be on the lookout for that. But quick little rundown for all the injuries that we do have so far. We have the Lakers, who are without Hachimura, Vanderbilt, and Gabe Vincent once again. LeBron James listed as questionable, but he's only missed 1 game so far this year, so do assume that he ultimately ends up playing. Then we have Anthony Davis listed as probable, and Cam Reddish is probable for tonight's game with that groin injury. He has missed, I believe, the past 3 games now, so going to be good to get him back, but kills off some Max Christie potential value there, depending on what site you're playing on. But Lakers pretty much back to full strength at this point in time, we would assume, for tonight's game. Then the Pistons are without Bogdanovich, Harris, and Morris all once again, so no real changes there. For the Washington Wizards, they're without Ryan Rollins and DeLon Wright once again, so no changes there whatsoever. And then for the Orlando Magic, we have Wendell Carter, Markelle Fultz both out once again. And then Jonathan Isaac listed as questionable. I believe it's ankle injury that he's dealing with. And I believe he did miss their most recent game. Then we move over to the Phoenix Suns, who are without Bradley Beal, Damon Lee, and Nazir Little. So nothing really too important there. Kevin Durant listed as questionable. He's dealing with a foot injury. He's missed their 2 most recent games. We'll see whether or not he plays or not tonight. And then Grayson Allen, dealing with an illness, is questionable. He missed their most recent game, did not participate in practice yesterday, so we'll see whether or not he plays tonight or not. So there could be some value opening up on the Suns team overall, whether it's a Josh Okogie, Keta Bates-Diop, just kind of depends if Durant plays or not. And for the Toronto Raptors, they did play last night, so we'll see whether or not they have any other additional injury news. We know Christian Koloko is going to be out once again, though. Then we move down to the Philadelphia 76ers, who are without Daniel House, Kelly Oubre, and Jaden Springer once again. They all three have been ruled out already at this point in time. For the New Orleans Pelicans, we got CJ McCollum listed as questionable. We'll see whether or not he ultimately ends up playing tonight or not. If he does end up playing, I do expect some type of minutes limit for him. So probably not a guy that we're getting to for DFS purposes. And then we have Trey Murphy and Matt Ryan, both listed as doubtful for tonight's game. So trending in the right direction, but still probably not playing tonight once again. For the Utah Jazz, we have Lauri Markkanen missing once again with his hamstring injury. Kelly Olynyk dealing with a shoulder injury. He is listed as questionable. We'll see whether or not he plays or not tonight. We'll see whether or not Walker Kessler re-enters that starting lineup. Last two games, it's been Omar Yurtseven. Kessler's been coming off the bench just so they can limit his minutes just a little bit more. And then we have Jordan Clarkson listed as questionable to play tonight. I believe he's dealing with a thigh contusion, so we'll see whether or not he's good. Probably not a guy I'm getting to personally either way, though. Then on the Memphis Grizzlies side, they are without Brandon Clark, Luke Kennard, Jake LaRavia, John Morant, Marcus Smart, and Xavier Tillman. So exactly what we've seen out of them probably for the last 4 games or so. Then we move down to Houston Rockets. They're on the back-to-back, so we will await their injury news. Probably going to get Victor Oladipo and Amen Thompson out once again. I do assume that Tari Eason joins them since he's been resting on the back half of back-to-back so far this season. And for the Denver Nuggets, we got Cam Carr out once again. Hunter Tyson's questionable due to illness, not really in the rotation either way. Jamal Murray is questionable for tonight's game with the hamstring injury, probably on some type of minutes limit if he does ultimately end up coming back. So probably not going to be too much value on this Nuggets team overall, especially if some of these guys come back and are healthy. Nikola Jokic listed as questionable with that back injury. Do assume that he ultimately ends up playing tonight. And then we have Aaron Gordon, who's missed the 2 most recent games due to a heel injury. He's questionable as well. And then Peyton Watson listed as probable due to illness, but he did play their 2 most recent games, so not worried about him whatsoever. For the Clippers, it's Brandon Boston and Mason Plumlee both out once again. Sacramento Kings are on the back-to-back. We'll see whether or not Keegan Murray is able to play tonight or not due to his back injury. So, quick little rundown on all the injuries in play for tonight's slate. A couple that we'll be watching throughout the day. Doesn't look like there's going to be a ton of value opening up unless we really get some good news in favor of that Suns team overall, but could make for a pretty interesting slate overall. And then, as always, I will be leaving all the injury updates down in the comments throughout the day. So definitely make sure you're checking up down there as we do get closer to lock. But with that being said, we'll get moving over to DraftKings and talk about my core picks for tonight's slate. So we're going to start off with the point guard position with Derrick Rose, an oldie but goodie here. We got $4,400 looking for 22 points. Exactly what I have projected for tonight at 22 points. This should be one that changes throughout the day, but at least early on looks like a decent value play, which there's not much of to go around. It's a decent matchup against the Utah Jazz as well. 2 poor teams playing against each other. 2 teams that are very banged up at this point in time, so I would not be surprised if he ends up being a decent value. But like I said, this is probably going to be one that changes throughout the day. Then at shooting guard, we're going to go with Jaden Ivey. He's just too cheap at this point in time, $5,700. Looking for 28, 29 points. He's averaging 23 so far in the season. But since he's been in that starting lineup playing bigger minutes, he's looking really good. Got him at least for 29 points tonight. Probably goes over 30 at the same time. Then at small forward, we're going to go with Scotty Barnes, $8,700. Nice little bounce back game last night. So looking for 43, 44 points, averaging 45 so far in the season. Decent matchup against the Suns, especially if Kevin Durant doesn't play tonight. Could be even better for him. It should be a pretty back and forth game either way, unless, Toronto's too tired from last night, but don't really expect that to be the case. Do like Scotty Barnes tonight, right around 43, 44 fantasy points, but does have some pretty good upside for more at the same time as well. Then we move down to power forward with Jaren Jackson Jr., $7,400. One of the cheapest price tags you've seen on him so far this season, looking for 37 points. I'm averaging 34 on the season. Currently, I'm projected for 37, 38 tonight. Decent matchup against Utah, going against John Collins at that power forward spot. There is some upside to be had with him, whether it's points, rebounds, blocks, you name it. Really hasn't done it too much this season, but kind of a buy low candidate for today overall. Do like the upside that he could present overall in that power forward spot. A lot of these guys that are out there, I think they're just a little bit overpriced, so I like going with the buy low option in Jaren Jackson Jr. just in general. And then last but not least, we'll go to the center position with Walker Kessler. $5,900, looking for 29, 30 points down, averaging 24.5 so far on the season. Been pretty banged up, though. It was up to 26 minutes in their most recent game. If you get 28 minutes out of him tonight, it's going to look really good. And then with that being said, currently have him projected for 30 to 31 fantasy points tonight on the DraftKings side. So definitely looks like a solid value option at that center position today. Like I said, not a ton of value to go around, but if you go with the 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $17,900 remaining. Just under $6,000 per player. Obviously, there are some good pay-up options on tonight's slate with Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Devin Booker if you want to go there, as well as Kevin Durant if he ultimately ends up playing. Not a lot of value, so it's going to make it a little bit harder to get to those guys, kind of get creative, mix and match as the day moves along. Hopefully we get some other value that does ultimately end up popping up. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there as well. So once again, at the point guard position, we ended up on Derrick Rose. He's $4,100, looking for 21 points out. Currently, I'm projected for 22 on the FanDuel side tonight. Guy that's playing, decent-sized minutes off the bench. He's going in a Utah matchup that looks pretty favorable. He goes against the Utah Jazz. Should be a pretty favorable matchup for him tonight. Like I said, not a ton of value plays out there at this point in time. FanDuel's a little bit better than DraftKings, but Derrick Rose, $4,100. Do have him currently projected for 22 fantasy points on the FanDuel side tonight. Then at shooting guard, we're going back to Jaden Ivey once again, $5,700, looking for 29 points out. Exactly what I have him for tonight overall. Since he's been in that starting lineup, he's been playing big minutes and been playing pretty well. Would not be surprised if he goes over 30 FanDuel points once again tonight. Then at small forward, we're taking a shot on Kevin Huerter. It's on the back-to-back. He played really well last night. Kind of been an up-and-down season for him, but, if Keegan Murray's out once again, the minutes should be there. And if he's out there, if he's shooting the ball well, he's definitely going to outperform this price tag of $5,000. He's averaging 26 fantasy points so far on the season. It's a decent matchup against Clippers, maybe a little bit of a pace down spot just in general, but still like him for 26 fantasy points tonight. Has some upside for more, especially if Keegan Murray is out once again tonight. Then at power forward, we're going to go down to Paolo Banchero, $7,700, looking for 39 fantasy points out. I'm averaging about 27 so far on the season. Good matchup tonight against the Washington Wizards. He's been playing pretty well as of late. Currently, I'm projected for 40 points tonight. Definitely has some upside for more in a very, very good matchup for this Orlando Magic team. And then last but not least, we're going to Walker Kessler once again at the center position. $5,900, looking for 30 points out of him on the FanDuel side. Currently, I'm projected for 32. If he goes out there, if he's getting those rebounds, if he's getting those blocks, if he plays upwards of 28 minutes, is going to look even better in a very favorable matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. But with that being said, if you go with the 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $31,500 remaining, just under $7,900 per player. So a decent amount of money left over. Probably can pay up for a couple extra studs if you really want to pay up at that center position to Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid. Over Walker Kessler, you can do that on FanDuel as well. But with the block upside of him and the potential to be a very high-scoring center option, I really do like that tonight. So maybe you go to like an Anthony Davis and play him at power forward, or Domantas Sabonis. You could do that as well. There's lots of different ways that you can approach this slate and potentially getting some extra value as the day moves along. So FanDuel doesn't look too bad right now. DraftKings is a little bit tighter in terms of price-wise at this point in time. But with that being said, these are my core picks for both FanDuel and DraftKings for today, Wednesday, November 29th. As always, if you have any questions related to NBA DFS, be sure to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And then I do ask that you please note whether those questions are more FanDuel or DraftKings specific, just so I can help you as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then as always, I'll be listing all the injury updates as they do come out throughout the day down in the comments below, as well as the starting lineups as they are announced throughout the night. And then about 15 to 20 minutes prior to lock, I'll leave an updated core as a pinned comment. If there's no changes to the core at that point in time, I'll just leave a comment that says no changes to the core at this point in time. And then if there are any other additional changes throughout the night, I will leave that as a reply to the pinned comment as well. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking it out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps with the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now we have NBA DFS Monday through Friday in terms of the core pick videos. And then once a week, do have the NFL DFS player pool video typically coming out on Saturday morning or early Saturday afternoon. So definitely be sure to check that out as well if that's something you're into, as well as my NFL DFS cheat sheets going up on the sports affiliation website for both DraftKings and FanDuel. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for Prize Picks, Parlay Play, and BetUS. If you're a brand new user to any one of those 3 sites, you will get a first match deposit on your initial deposit. For Prize Picks and Parlay Play, it's up to $100. For BetUS, that's 125% of your first deposit up to $2,500. So definitely some good opportunities out there if you're interested in getting into sports betting or prop betting whatsoever. If you have any other additional questions related to that, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and I'd be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning into this video. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NBA DFS tonight.